What is the next topic? I need my brain to melt like cheese, eternal. Yes, next topic we're going to do is actually going to be the Telepathy Tapes Podcast, okay? Very interesting. This guy interviewed a bunch of children with autism and claimed that they can communicate telepathically. Pathetically. It is, as far as I could find out, a podcast, and it confuses me slightly because a podcast in my mind is a verbal thing. Maybe there is a camera filming a person talking to a microphone, but what we see here is actually much more like a documentary. But nobody calls it a documentary, so I'm slightly confused by this, but it ultimately doesn't matter. It's a bunch of people who claim that there is this ability of autistic people to communicate telepathically with each other, okay? And there's a whole bunch of videos here. We're not going to watch all of them, but the tweet reads, I listened to the first episode of the Telepathy Tapes, and I have to admit, I'm impressed. He's deeply impressed. These people can truly tap into our minds, and it seems like the scientific consensus is causing great harm to humanity as a whole. And what he means by that is the scientific consensus is that it's bullshit. The scientific consensus is telepathy is not real, so that causes great harm to humanity as a whole. These results are definitely measured using the scientific method, yet they are still rejected. Telepathy is real, and it's part of the human genome. Be sure to read the entire thread because I make money, because I have a blue check mark behind my name, and if you read it, I get more views, and that makes me money on Twitter, even it's pathetically low. We looked at some people sharing their Twitter revenue in the past. In previous streams, I think it was Brian Krasenstein who had like 3.9 million views on his tweets, and he got like $7.99. So it's fucking nothing. Twitter fucks you in all of your holes, but if you enjoy it, you might make a thread like this. Now, here we go. This is a little outtake. It's only 49 seconds, but it should give you a little bit of an idea of what the telepathy tapes is all about, okay? Again, it's all about autistic people communicating telepathically. Let's go.
Let's please multiply two numbers and see if he gets it.
Okay, what is it?
9 0 0.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
1.
Maybe shuffle again, Dr. Powell. Oh.
Plus 2.
So he got the plus, too.
I was wondering, because I was looking at the 2 the whole time, and I saw his hand going somewhere else.
Is the next number.
3. Biggest overall finding is really this increase of activation across all the brain waves. If there was no change, I would definitely be skeptical.
If you can show a consistent pattern, particularly from kid to kid, that's how science changes. You cannot fake this.
Let's please
Right, you cannot fake this, okay? So, first of all, love the music, okay? Really like aspiring, beautiful, positive music. It's like the world is changing. A big thing is happening here. That's what this music suggests to me. It's great. It's great stuff happening. Here are these autistic people reading the minds of other people, guessing numbers. They're able to guess the numbers. It's absolutely wild. Now, what they say here, let's be honest, and you know, if you look at the actual documentary or the podcast, it's a lot of anecdotes, okay? It's a lot of people claiming that they guessed the words. There's lots of claims of tests. They claim tests, but they don't really show them in depth. You've seen it here. It shows these 2 videos where they're guessing a number, but it's like it's heavily cut, and we don't know how often. Maybe they tried it 50 times and guessed the wrong number, but here they are guessing the right number in this one clip. So we don't really know, and they don't show us the exact process of that they went through and all the other examples and attempts of them. But, you know, all the family members in this documentary, there's always family members present, and all the alleged medical professionals, they all agree. It's totally telepathy. Now, if I watch this, my first point is like, okay, if this would be real, right? Let's say these kids really, you stand behind them and you really hold up a number. They can't see the number, but they will be able to read that number from your mind. Why don't you prove it? Why don't you do this in a scientific setup? Why does it always have to be a family member that sits next to the person? Because if you look at these videos, the person that sits next to the autistic person or child or whatever, so here, this person is a family member. It's always a family member sitting next to them. The same here. right? The person sitting next to him doing this test with them is a family member. There's always a family member or a person of trust that they know very, very close to them. They touch them. You can see it in some of these videos when they're guessing the numbers, they're touching them on their shoulder and stuff like that. So why don't you remove all family members if it's true, right? If these people can read minds, why don't you remove all family members, any person of trust, put it into a scientific setup and prove it once and for all? Why, right? Like you could see it here, for example. Let's look at this. Look how he's touching her hand, right? He's touching the hand. She's the other person here. They're both family members or people that they trust, that they know. And they're both touching the hand, stroking the hand. They're constantly in touch with these people while they do these tests. If it would be true, that's easy to prove, right? You can prove it really easily. Put it in a scientific setup and you're done. You can prove it, but they don't do it. They don't do it. Why do they not do it? That's the question. Now, what's interesting is when it comes to telepathy and people reading minds and all this kind of shit we're seeing here, there's actually a long history of facilitators and therapists influencing children, specifically in this case, children, in spelling out lies when double-blind tests with the same children were conducted and they spelled out something else. So this is not the first time people claim this kind of stuff. People have claimed this stuff before and then they put them into scientific setups, and 100% of the cases, not 97.8, and there's like a little bit of a benefit of a doubt, 100% of the cases in the past, once they are put into a blind test meaning there's no parent, there's no person of trust in the room. It's just scientists, people they don't know, holding up numbers, using scientific methods to test these claims. They fail 100% of the time. That doesn't mean that every now and then they don't guess a number right? But if you ask 50 numbers and they guess 3 right, that's not worth suggesting that it's telepathy, right? So 100% of the cases when they do these blind tests, they fail. They don't do blind tests here in this documentary. It's always family members close by. Point being, when they claim that these kids guess the answer, as long as there is a parent, a person of trust close by, it means nothing, right? Because like someone said earlier, ultimately, it is an exercise of them reading cues more sensitively than other people. And it's funny, right? Because like, in this particular tweet, they say like, the results are definitely measured using the scientific method, yet they are still rejected. And then everything they show is the exact opposite of a scientific method. It is just everyone around them touching their hands, stroking them, the mother of the child holding up the chart with the numbers. This is not the scientific method at all. And that's what I find so funny, that they make this claim here that it's like a scientific method when actually it's not. But obviously, if you don't know exactly what a scientific method is, you will read this tweet, you will watch this video, which is clearly evoking emotion, and be like, yeah, that's wow, oh my God, right? By the way, they do additional tests, right? They do additional tests in this thing, but get this is wild. The additional tests they do are behind a paywall. This is not a joke. If you want to see the full tests they do with these kids, behind a paywall. You got to pay for it. The tests themselves also super suspicious, because like in some of these, in this particular video, right, in this what they call the telepathy tapes, they have to pick these popsicles. So they give them 6 colored popsicles, and they have to choose the one that the other person is thinking about, right? And it's like, if this person can read someone's mind, why not 15 or 25 popsicles with numbers on it? Why is it just 6? Why is it 3-digit numbers they have to guess and not 15-digit numbers? If you can read minds, bro, you can read a 15-digit number, no problem. It can't be an issue. If you actually can read minds, it takes a bit more time, but you'll read all the 15 numbers. No, it's limited to a 3-digit number. It's limited to 6 popsicles. It is such a great example of people struggling to have skeptical thinking, because people watch this, they put this emotive music behind it, and it leaves you with this thought of, wow, you know, there's really something there. It appeals to your emotions, but if you filter it through logic, nothing is left, bro. Here's what I find fascinating about this whole telepathy tapes thing. There's clearly something interesting here, and that is that these kids, I think, are clearly very talented in picking up on incredibly subtle physical cues. I believe, and I can't prove this, but I believe that their parents, because obviously their parents want their children to be special, right? Every single parent wants their children to be special, especially if you have an autistic child and it's challenging, your whole life. So now here's this child and people visit you, right? There's this TV crew visiting your home and they're like, oh my God, your child is special. It can read minds and all that shit. So subtly, you will give your child these cues that will point them into the direction of the right number. And these children are clearly very, very talented, almost genius in the level of them picking up these subtle physical cues. But nobody talks about that. I think that would be an incredible documentary. If you would say, wow, look at these autistic children and how good they are at picking up these subtle cues by their parents. These parents don't intentionally even give them a cue, but they still pick it up and they notice it. You know what I mean? Like there's something fascinating here and I love it, but for some reason that's not being debated. It's not even mentioned once. They're just like, it's telepathy without having any scientific method around it. And what's really interesting is there is actually a little piece of a documentary because, as I said, the actual tests themselves are behind a paywall. So you need to pay for the tests. But there is an actual little piece of a documentary that was conducted by the same doctor that we see in the podcast, right? So here is that piece of footage. And they're visiting a child, a prodigy child, allegedly, which you see here, that seems to have very similar abilities. Let's take a look at this.
I got here.
I have seen evidence of telepathy in many people.
Right. Me too, bro. In chat, I've seen it a few times. People said I've drunk.
Meet 5-year-old Ramses Sanguino.
Ramses.
His mother believes he's a child genius.
He's such a good boy.
She considers him a savant, a rare individual who has remarkable talents that defy their age and experience.
Since he was a baby, I think he didn't like toys. He just loved reading books.
That's an old periodic table.
That's right, it's an old periodic table.
Whilst other children his age might just be learning to read, Ramses is apparently able to read in several languages.
Apparently. We're not going to provide any evidence for that Ramses is actually able to read and write in several languages. We're claiming it, and you will believe it.
Midori, good job. E. Y.
And he can even tackle algebra. But his mum's boldest claim is that he's telepathic, as when she thinks of a number, he can read her mind.
The answer is 45. Mission 2.
Okay, mission 2.
81. The answer of mission 3 is 99.
99! Oh my goodness! Congratulations! We have a special connection, a really tight connection. I think it's a wonderful thing that he does some telepathy.
But is Ramses telepathic? His talents have drawn the attention of an expert in the field.
Today I'm going to go and...
An expert in the field of telepathy in children. Let's bring in the expert who believes that telepathy in children is real.
see Ramses, who's a 5-year-old autistic.
By the way, I can't get over this kid being called Ramses, dude. Got a user on our Discord called Ramses. It's a whole thing going on between me and him, but anyway.
Boy, and he is a very special boy. He has the ability to read at least 7 or 8 languages, and his mother claims that he started to read languages when he was 2 years old. He started doing algebra when he was 4 years old. And
he's a very special boy. I'm his mother, and my boy is very, very special, okay? Just want to make this clear. There are many special children out there, but my boy, very, very, very special. Very intelligent. He read algebra when he was 2. So my boy is very special.
On top of that, he actually has demonstrated telepathy.
Dr. Diane Powell is a neuroscientist who's studying telepathy and its potential link with autism. She believes that it may represent an alternative method of communication between autistic children and their parents.
If you have your primary language compromised, then That would be a perfect setup for telepathy, because here you have a child and a parent who desperately want to communicate with one another.
Today, Dr. Powell is going to test Ramsey's ability to identify numbers by reading his mother's mind.
For this experiment to be scientifically rigorous, we need to have randomized stimuli. And so in order to do that, I'm using a site called random.org. Today, based on whatever
The scientific method, guys, random.org generates random numbers. That's how, I mean, dude, it doesn't get more scientific than that, let's be honest.
numbers are generated, we're going to select cards, and then I will take the cards and I'll have them face down and I will hand them one to the mother. We're going to get the numbers now. So here are our numbers.
Whilst Ramses waits in another room, 5 numbers between 1 and 9 are selected by a random number.
Again, between 1 and 9. Why not between 1 and 100? Why if he can read minds, right? Why can it not be 58, 79, 65? Why does it have to be numbers from 1 to 9? Like, just the possibility, right, of him guessing a right number is just ridiculous. And it's like them just abandoning any realistic scientific approach of saying, dude, if you can read minds, let's take 100 numbers. It's already like, what the frick, bro?
Generator. They are then represented by playing cards, with an ace representing...
And again, notice the mom is conducting the test. The mom is like, I have the number here right now, little Sergio. Can you guess the number, Sergio, please?
Number 1. As it's claimed that Ramses can see the number by reading his mother's mind, Nix holds the cards and asks him to tell her the number.
Ramses, what number I have here?
I got 10.
Good job.
Wrong. First number, wrong.
1.
Frances, what number I got here?
1.
Good job.
Good job,
What
Ramses.
number I got here?
A.
Good job.
Did you say, what did you say?
He said 8.
He said 8. Didn't you hear? He said 8. I can repeat it for him because he said 8. You didn't hear it? It was a clear 8. He said something that sounded a bit like 8, so it is 8.
Okay.
So far, 2 out of 4 correct, but also 2 out of 4 wrong.
Great job.
Great job.
How about 9?
Good job.
Well done. How about 9? Oh my God, he's
Well,
good.
one way
yeah.
to look at it is he got 3 out of the 5 correct. To get 3 of them correct, it would be 1 out of 9 times 1 out of 9 times 1 out of 9, which is 1 out of 729.
The results, whilst encouraging, aren't conclusive, but Nix maintains that her son's abilities are out of this world, and she's not concerned that he...
The mother is convinced that her child is very, very special, okay? Very special. The results are not conclusive and whatnot, but the child is very, very special. Dude, I mean, it's ridiculous. Let's be honest, man. She showed him the last card. I'm not sure she showed it to him, but here's the thing. The parents should not be in the room. If this woman who claims to be some expert in the field of telepathy, right? If she has any sense of like credibility and like the ambition to actually prove that telepathy exists, nobody can be in the room. Nobody he knows can be in the room. But even in that previous documentary, where you have to pay to see the actual tests, the parents are always in the room. The parents always touch the children. The parents always have eye contact with the children. They hold the cards that show the numbers to them. And the reason why they're listed, because they do address it in the other documentary, is like, why do the parents always have to be in the room? And the reason is that because they're autistic children, the negative energy causes anxiety and stops the telepathy from working. Nice, bro. Nice. Very good. Good excuse. Why does the telepathy not work? Well, that's because something, anxiety. We need the parents in the room. They need to do it. Well, the truth is, the mother probably gives subtle visual cues to them knowing. And here is the cherry on top of this whole thing. This is amazing, okay? There's this thing called Clever Hans. Clever Hans was a horse. It was a horse, okay? Now read this. Clever Hans translates to Der kluge Hans, was a horse that appeared to perform arithmetic and other intellectual tasks. In 1907, psychologist Oskar Pfunks demonstrated that the horse was not actually performing these mental tasks, but was watching the reactions of his trainer. The horse was responding directly to involuntary cues in the body language of the human trainer, who was entirely unaware that he was providing these cues, okay? So this horse was suddenly able to read, to write, to perform these seemingly human tasks, okay, in the early 20th century. But they found out that it wasn't the horse at all. It was the trainer giving him these cues because the trainer wanted the horse to succeed. The trainer wanted to have a very special horse. My horse is the most special horse that you can imagine, right? And the trainer was involuntarily giving him these cues. It was a subconscious thing. He did not consciously suggest things to the horse, but subconsciously giving subtle cues. And the horse, we're not talking about a child here, the horse was able to read those cues and translate it into action. This is a psychological effect, right? It's a psychological, and I'm not saying that this mother of the kid of the documentary we just watched is intentionally giving these cues to the kid. He's not like holding up 3 hands or fingers behind the cart or 2 fingers to give him the cues. It's actually fascinating. It's almost a subtle, unconscious language developed between the child and the mother that gives the child cues of, is it a 9 or a 6? Is it a 7 or a 4? You know what I mean? It's absolutely fascinating because the mother wants the child to succeed so much that she subconsciously develops these cues, and the kid wants to please the mom so much that he or she subconsciously adapts these cues and more often than not reads the right number as suggested by the mother. So it's just a series of subtle visual cues without even knowing that you're providing them. It's a psychological phenomenon, and I find it highly fascinating. If it works for a horse in 1904, I could imagine that it works for a kid. And that's also why in these blind tests with the scientists, where all parents, everyone is removed, 100 out of 100 times they are wrong. Right? Because it is the parents giving them the subtle cues. That's how it works. It's almost a magic trick, right? And as soon as you remove that factor of the mother giving involuntarily the cues, it doesn't work anymore. It's done. The trick is broken. That's why it doesn't work with independent scientists in a blind test. Super fascinating stuff. And that's why I think the telepathy tapes are complete nonsense, okay? It is parents giving subtle cues.